Well, we're back here on Better Than Before. I'm Tony Richards, your host, and joining us today is Nick Allen from Manor Roofing and Restoration. Hi, Nick.
How you doing, Tony?
I'm so glad you had a chance to come by and be with us today. I've got several questions I want to ask you, and you've got several roles and responsibilities in the community. But first of all, tell me a little bit about Manor Roofing, your company.
So Manor Roofing, we are an exterior remodeler. One of the things that we kind of fall into the trap a little bit with is we're so much more than just about roofs. About 50-60% of our business is roofing related. A lot of that is metal roofing related. And we do traditional types of roofing, architectural shingles. A real growth area, or growth areas for our business over the last number of years has been in siding and windows and replacement decks and guttering. So really there's not much that we don't do on the exterior of a home.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, what do you not do on exteriors?
We're not brick masons, but that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, and you have done commercial too, right?
We do, yeah. Typically, most years, commercial occupies about 20-25% of our business.
Cool. And you're on the chamber board this year here in Columbia.
I am, yeah. One way of kind of giving back.
Yep, we'll get to some of those responsibilities in a second. But tell me a little bit about growing up. Where were you raised?
I was actually born in Mexico, Missouri. My parents were living in Wellsville, Missouri, but most of my growing up was in Warrenton, Missouri, about an hour and 15 minutes east of here, in between here and St. Louis. And pretty simple upbringing. Warrenton is kind of small town USA, graduating class of about 128 people, and played Corps League baseball and basketball, and pretty simple times for the most part. Kind of always knew that I was going to wind up in Columbia, Missouri at Mizzou, and so that was always an aspiration of mine, and that's what started my love affair with Columbia, Missouri.
That's cool. And you've got quite a broad age range in your family too. Like,
I do.
You've got everything from college students to well, you tell everybody about your family.
In fact, I have my first legacy already. And so my oldest, Katie, she graduated from Mizzou in the fall of 2015. So she's a Mizzou grad and lives in Oklahoma City now. I've got one that's at Mizzou, a sophomore, actually I guess she'll start her junior year this fall. That's Sarah. And then I've got an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Wow.
One getting ready to head into middle school and one getting ready to start the third grade.
I'm a big fan of your wife, too, Carrie. I first met her in Leadership Columbia 2012. She was at State Farm for a long time, but now she's moved on to some new stuff, too.
She has, yeah. So she spent almost 20 years with State Farm, and then in October of last year, she made a transition, and she's now the Assistant Director of HR for MoDOT. She really enjoys that.
Cool. Now, tell me a little bit about your professional career before you decided to go into business.
I always knew I was going to go to Mizzou, and I got a business degree from Mizzou. When I got out of college, I graduated in May of 91 and pretty much went right into the steel business. I had done an internship while in college at a steel processing plant over in Granite City, Illinois, and then wound up taking a position with National Steel Corporation at their headquarters up near South Bend, Indiana. And that kind of started my journey into the building products industry. So for roughly 15 years, I was in the corporate world, mostly selling steel to building manufacturers, guys that put metal roofs and metal walls, or at least manufacture those products.
Yeah. And so then when did the seed of this idea come where you thought, I need to have my own business?
I always had that hankering. My dad was pretty much self-employed for most of his life. He's an auctioneer. Heck, he sold Yellow Pages in his early days. Always pretty much a self-employed person, and I always had that hankering. I just really didn't know what it was that I was going to wind up doing. After, nearly 15 years in the corporate world, I knew I didn't want to do that forever. That's where I recognized that metal roofing was really enjoying a resurgence within both residential and commercial. So the idea became, hey, why don't I get set up where I can travel the state doing residential and commercial metal installs, because there really wasn't a good network of qualified contractors doing that. And that was one of the things that I heard from the manufacturers that I was selling to, that, man, if we could just get more contractors out in the network pushing the metal, the demand is there. It was really a lack of qualified contractors that were available to them.
So then, as all business owners have, you have had, I'm sure, surprises in business. So what are some of the surprises that you've had, both positive and negative, in owning your own business?
We're fortunate enough to get to work with probably somewhere near 300 or so customers each year. You know, the relationships that you build out of that, how strong they become, and the friends that you make. You know, we're doing roughly 75% of our business is on the residential side of things. And so you're doing home improvements for what is most people's single biggest investment. And so you're with them, you're helping fulfill their expectations, and you really develop a lot of good friendships. People that I still know, I ran into a customer of ours that we put their metal shingle roof on their house in 2007, and they happened to be sitting out on their front porch. This is just a few weeks ago. I was out with one of our sales guys looking at a property and ran into them, and it's just like, you know, just good friendship.
You have all these people in your previous life telling you that if we could just get contact with contractors and we could get these metal roofs into the marketplace, and you're thinking, oh, you know what, I could maybe provide that outlet or whatever. Did that show up right away, or did it take a while? Did you have doubts there for a while, or?
There is no doubt I had doubts.
Yeah.
I can remember my dad telling me, he's like, son, what in the heck are you doing? And it's literally like they say, a number of, you know, nights laying in bed thinking, what did I do? You know, am I doing the right thing? Slowly but surely, you know, you just started getting a little bit of traction here or there. After a couple years and a very encouraging wife who hung in there and was telling me, don't give up. You're making progress, even though sometimes it felt to me that the progress was going so slow. Yeah, it eventually, the traction became there and then just kind of kept fueling on itself.
So now how did Rich Hollinger come into your life?
Rich was doing some work he was actually selling for another roofing company. You know, as I mentioned, I started out just primarily focused on metal roofs. One way that our business grew was, you know, we'd get people that say, well, you know, I've got a different type of project, or I'm only going to be in this home for a short period of time, and really a metal roof, the longevity and durability, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to make that investment. Do you do more traditional types? And I started out in that where I would subcontract some work through the company that Rich was working for. And so he and I kind of developed a friendship, and a real strong friendship. He eventually wound up coming to work for us.
Yeah, Rich used to be my neighbor, Rich and his wife at the time, Amy, and they worked with Nick. And unfortunately, Rich passed away a few years ago, but just a heck of a guy. People still talk about the things that Rich did for them.
Absolutely.
When he worked for you, and just things he did for people.
Absolutely. And, you know, he was a significant part of our growth and kind of putting us on the map, because he was a business owner himself for a number of years.
Rich Exteriors.
Rich Exteriors, that's right. He had quite the following and represented us. And, you know, he taught me a ton about how to deal with people in this market, and just a great guy.
So if you had a chance to start another business, a lot of times entrepreneurs, they just like starting businesses. Would you start another construction type business, or would you start something else?
It would very likely be in the home improvement type industry or building. I love coming in and, you know, seeing the fruits of our labor, you know, literally, where you're making a drastic change, you're making a real improvement. And so I do believe that I may have one more business in me. I've thought that for some time. I plan on maybe working another 15 to 20 years or so, and who knows where that might take me.
So then, as the leader of your company, as the leader of Manor, what do you think you're pretty good at as far as leading the company?
So in the construction business, you know, the one thing that you know that you're going to be dealing with almost constantly is change. The weather's changing, schedules change. Employee doesn't come in that morning, so you're not going to get as much done that day. Deliveries from suppliers. So there's always something that is changing about our business on almost a daily basis. And the one thing that, for whatever reason, I think I do pretty decently is I don't allow that to eat me up, and I don't panic. because there's plenty of opportunity for that, where if you're not able to handle that change and talk it through with whether it be, an employee or a homeowner, whichever, you just really have to be prepared to deal with things constantly adjusting in our business.
What about struggles? Where do you come up short, or where do you struggle as a leader?
So I'm a perfectionist, and, I have my challenges with just letting things go. And I really have a good team in place now, and it's taken a while to get there. But now, one of my major priorities is just get out of their way, and it's one of those things where all of the important stuff doesn't have to come across my desk every day. That's one of the keys that I'm really working on now is I've got the right people in place, let them run it.
Yeah. A friend of mine just wrote a book, and one of the chapters in the book is make yourself useless.
Yeah.
And that is the most disempowering feeling, because once you make yourself useless, you're like, now what do I do? Right. But what it does is it frees you up to focus on other things.
Absolutely.
So Leadership Columbia 2013, that was your class.
Yes.
And you
actually 2014.
2014,
yeah, 2014.
Right? Okay,
yeah.
2014. And now you and Paige Harper have come back, which I always love. I love it when people, especially if they've been my students in the class, they come back and contribute and help lead that class through another year. So that's what you and Paige are doing here in 2018. What's that been like this year?
It's been a really awesome experience. You're in a little bit of a different spot where you're able to observe more and just kind of watch the class dynamic. And
you're in my position.
Yeah.
I get to do that every year.
And it's been a lot of fun. So the class is comprised of 30 individuals plus an individual from the chamber. So we got 31 in the class, and they're from a wide range of businesses and, people that work for the city, all kinds of different walks of life. They come together, and we're exposing them to a variety of elements of the city of Columbia and how the city operates. And so we have individual days. We meet roughly every 2 weeks. There's a different topic that you're covering and different area of the city that you're exploring, and just watching, some of the eye-opening experiences where people might have lived here their entire lives and they didn't realize that, oh, this is part of what's either available or what's going on in the city of Columbia. It's a lot of fun. And as you know, our class, about 2/3 of them are high I's in the disc profile, which means they're pretty engaging, outgoing, social.
They have a lot to say.
Yeah, they have a lot to say. Never at a loss for words. It's been a fun class.
I can tell they think I'm lying to them, because in orientation every year, I tell them a couple things. I say, number one, you look at this as a huge commitment, and it is. It goes from January to the 1st of June, but it's going to go faster than you think, and it's going to be over before you know it. And this week is it.
So this Wednesday is our last session.
Right.
And then graduation is next Tuesday, and it really has flown by. It's a big commitment, as you said.
Yeah.
But it really does move fast.
And then I tell them you're going to want to do it again, and you can't.
Yeah.
You can only go through it once. Now you can come back and contribute as a co-chair for either a day or for the whole program. And I think that's why a lot of people want to come back and contribute to the program, is because they really like that experience. It's a shared experience, right?
It is, yeah.
And you even have an employee that works for you that was in your class, right?
I do, yeah. Yep. So Gavin Bryan, who works for us, he's in the class this year, and this is our 4th or 5th year of having someone participate. Consecutive years, where we've had somebody in the class.
I was thinking more, though, that your sales manager was in your class.
She was, yes, exactly. So Amanda Wooden, that's where she and I first met, was in our Leadership Columbia class.
So as CEO of Manor, tell me about your top 3 priorities for this year.
So in the construction business, one of the things that, at a national level that we are all dealing with is a shortage on the labor side of things. And I'm a firm believer that he who controls their labor over the next several years in our line of business is going to wind up being near the top, one of the kings. And so we're really working hard this year on different ways of attracting, retaining, the recruiting piece, and just trying to grow the labor side of ours, because it's a constraint for us. I believe we can produce more if we had good, capable qualified guys that we could add into our fold.
And I think you've told me before too, on the labor side of things, when you're talking about roofing and things of that nature, that is not something you do long into your career.
That's right.
Right. So you're looking for pretty youthful people.
You are. And, we had the downturn in that 2008 through 11, 12 time frame. And what happened in our industry is we really didn't need much coming into the pipe in terms of the labor side of things. And then when things took off, they turned really quickly. You bring somebody into our business, and it's really a couple years before you're getting anything real meaningful out of them. The amount of training that needs to go into it. There's not that young influx. And so we've got an aging workforce that, is kind of falling out of the back end of it, and we need more on the front end.
Because they want to get to like a supervisory role or something, I'm sure, and there's only limited number of those jobs.
That's correct,
right?
yeah.
All right, so labor's one. What's another couple?
Yeah, and I mentioned that I've got the right team in place, and so me getting out of the way and staying out of the way and just kind of letting them do their thing. That's probably my second biggest major priority. And
Let the horses run.
Yeah, absolutely. What I am spending more of my time in is diving deeper into our financials, making sure that I understand at a very deep level, because they really tell a story to you. You can learn a ton from knowing your financials. And the other piece to that is we're holding monthly staff meetings, and it's not just staff, it's every single employee in our business, in our company, that I'm sharing a lot of that financial information with them. Obviously, construction business, we're very seasonal. In the January, February timeframe, where there's not a ton of activity in terms of what we're producing during that time frame, a lot of your fixed cost is still there. You don't get away from that. Our employees understanding the investment that you go through in the early months until we get to that period where things do ramp up quite a bit, just them knowing that, it makes them better decision makers during those time frames, so that it's an easier path through those times.
You're a lot like me. You like hanging out with business people and business owners. You like talking shop. Why do you think some people are successful in their business and why other people aren't?
It's probably the recognition of when to add, the right additional person, the right piece of equipment. And it really kind of all goes back to, I like to look at it better as why do many fail? And they probably try to do way too much themselves. They fail to recognize when's the right time to add into their business. And, I've done the same thing for sure. I've waited too long, and I look back and I said, boy, I wish I would have done that, a year or two ahead of time. But, you're always watching your overhead and trying to be cognizant of when and where you're spending money. That's one of the biggest things to me.
I think what you said too is a lot of people just don't know their numbers. They don't know the story that's being told.
They kind of get to the end of the year and they look at the bottom line and like, well, okay, we had a decent year, we had a not so decent year. Yeah, knowing it much further ahead of time, I think, is a real key.
Yeah, and what's contributing to those things and this, that, and the other. Before I get into my rapid fire questions, just one more thing. What's one thing about Manor that you constantly hear that people may not know that surprises you?
We still get a lot of people that say, oh, I didn't know you do anything outside of roofs, and that always makes me cringe because we advertise a lot. Our sales guys do a good job of being out there and educating much of the market. That is the thing that probably would surprise me the most, is when I hear that, when we get that feedback of, oh, I didn't know you do windows, or I didn't know you do decks, those types of things.
Yeah, you're like, it's all over our website,
Right.
Yeah. How could you not see that we do decks or whatever? All right, so let's go through these closing questions for you. I'm going to hit you with these in rapid fire succession. It's standard list of questions I ask everybody who comes on the show. So what's the best memory that immediately comes to mind for you?
I would say being at the 97 Masters, the first year that Tiger won it. I was there over the weekend. I can remember watching Jack Nicklaus hole out on the 8th. I was sitting at the 8th green and watching him hole out for eagle.
Oh, wow. Number one hero in your life?
Probably my mom. My mom and dad split up when I was really young, and she remarried later, but just watching what she went through and all the hard work and just kind of holding things together.
Good. Top value you subscribe to?
Be genuine to everyone you meet.
Most important person in your life?
Jesus Christ.
Your favorite thing?
Wind in the face, riding on the boat down at the Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh, right on. Favorite food?
Sushi.
Most beautiful place you've been to?
I would say Costa Rica. Hawaii's close, but probably Costa Rica.
If you could describe success in one word, what would it be?
Freedom.
How do you want to be remembered?
As someone who gave back.
Advice for a younger Nick Allen?
Travel more.
What's your favorite sound?
A well-struck driver off of the first tee.
And what's the best lesson you've learned?
I would say talk less and listen more.
That's cool. Thanks for being on the show today.
I appreciate it.
Receive weekly coaching tips from Tony Richards, delivered straight to your inbox. Whether you're a CEO or an entrepreneur, Tony can help you reach your goals and give you a competitive edge within your industry. Tony's Monday Morning Coaching Memo covers topics ranging from leadership development to teamwork to company culture and more. Text the word leadership to 38470 to sign up for Tony's Monday Morning Coaching Memo, or sign up online at clearvisiondevelopment.com.